Okay, now this is part 2, and it's net present value. And net present value is a more complex way of calculating or evaluating whether a project is worth it or not as you go through. Because a lot of times you're going to have projects that look very close and it's going to need some calculation. There are two ways of doing this. At least I'm going to show you two ways. One is manually by using present value tables, which can get confusing, so just hang on to it. Or two, by using Excel and letting Excel do the number crunching. And you'll notice up here I've used a function, and it's showing up in the formula box here. And I'll explain this when we get to it. But first, let's do it the manual way. So here's the scenario. It's going to cost $520. It has a useful life of 6 years. And the annual income, and this is annual, for each of those 6 years is $235,000. It has a required rate of 10%, and it has a salvage value of $10,000. That's all the information you need to figure this out. Well, first of all, you have to say, well, why can't I just multiply 235,000 times 6 and come up with $1,410,000? That's what it's going to pay us. Well, one, that doesn't take into account the present value. This is that 1,410,000 is future value, and a lot can happen between now and then. So there's uncertainty there. There's also interest rates to consider and the rate of return. So you want to take all of this projected future forecast, if you want to look at it, and bring it back to today's value. A dollar today is not the same value as a dollar in a year. And that's why we have these present value tables. That's going to tell us the difference. Now, when we're doing a income that is the same over a length of period of time, that's the same as like an annuity. So you would use the factors in the annuity table. When you're using a lump sum that is just a lump sum in 10 years, you would use the bottom table, which is the value of a dollar discounted. The top one takes into consideration each year, the year 1, 2, 3, and kind of averages that all together and comes out with the correct factor. So what do we do with this? Well, first of all, I make a table because I can't keep track of anything without a table, as you well know by now. So first of all, we're going to look at, I don't know why I have which PV there. I'll just put PV. Um, so we have the annuity actually is the yearly income, but I put annuity so you would know which table to use. So the annuity is 235. And that's going to be, if you look at this, we have a total of 6 years right here at 10%. So if I come across and go to 10%, you'll find my factor to use is 4.3553. So that's what I have plugged in here. And I multiply that out, and I come to 1,023,496. Now, I have the salvage value that I have to consider. So the salvage value, I'm going to say, okay, so that's a lump sum. I'm going to come down and use the bottom table, and that's for the dollar discounted. So that's 6 periods, 6 years, times 5.5645, and that's the factor I'm going to use here. That was on the wrong one. That was kind of scary. So I multiply that times the 10,000. And I come up with $5,645. That's what that dollar amount is worth today. So I add those up, and this becomes my present value cash flows. So this $1.41 million in today's dollars is worth $1,029,141. So is this project worth it? Well, if I'm only paying $520,000 initially, I subtract that from the cash flow and come out with 509 present value, net present value. So it's over zero. So yes, it's worth it. Now to do this using Excel, here's your formula. Yeah, you type in equal NPV, then the rate, which is 10%, and the range, okay, the range of the outlays or the income, net flow coming in. Now, the only thing that's a little bit different with using Excel is that very last year, I add the salvage. So you add the salvage to that, and that will bring that back to present value. So then, what have I got here? So here's my rate, here's my range of incomes, and now it shows a plus J8. Now what I'm doing is I'm actually subtracting, but I have this in as a negative number. So for the formula, I have shown that as a plus. So what this is doing is it's the same thing as I've done in this situation, only I'm allowing Excel to do it. Now if this were if I had this as a positive number, I would subtract that, but I have it as a negative. So, and you'll notice we're really close. We're within $10 here. Another way of doing this is to look at the internal rate of return, which is another way of measuring the return. And most companies will have, okay, I have to have at least this much for a rate of return. And this is our internal rate of return. And again, I let Excel do this because internal rate of return is a lot of what ifs going back and forth trying to find what the actual rate is. So if I type in equal IRR and select J8, select the returns each year, I will come up with, or it will come up with, an internal rate of return of 39%. That would then be compared to what the realistic or the wanted rate of return was. Okay, so that's how you would do an even return on this. Now, so if I wanted to compare projects, I've got two. I've got one at 520 and 380. I would do the same thing for the one at 380. It's going to pay back in 8 years, though. Okay, its useful life is 8 years, so it's a little bit uneven. Again, I would go to the tables, this table, and find 8 years at 10%. And find out that my rate is 5.3349. So you can see that right here, 5.349. And that my salvage at 8 years at 10% is, it says 4, it's right here, 8. You see this? So it's 4.4665. So I've got my numbers. Now I have to multiply this out. So this has a present value cash flow of 569, and it has, we're going to subtract the 380 that we paid, and we'll have a net present value of 189,495. Again, you can do this using Excel to get the same results. I don't know why I have a plus in there. That should not be there. I guess it doesn't matter. Just kind of screws with it a little bit. We're very close, you'll see, same thing. So I have my rate, I have my range, and then I add back in that negative 380. So two ways of doing it. If you understand Excel and you're comfortable with Excel, you can set up a table and do it very quickly, or you can do it manually like this. Now this is if you've got even returns. If you don't have even returns, you're going to use a different method. It's the same method, only now, this is, we have year 1, year 2, year 3, and I've got to look at all of these separately. So now I've got to find, these are considered lump sums. So I have to use the second table for each one of the factors. And the factors come down to, and let's look at our factors, 5 years at 10%. So I come over at 5 years at 10%, and for year 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, these are the factors I'm going to use for each of these individual um, cash flows. Again, you'll multiply things out. You'll come up with the present value cash flow minus what we're spending for it and find out I have a positive cash flow of 85,000. So that's for one project. The NPV is the same way. And now if I look at the other one, I find it has also a positive. Those are really close. So you would probably select this one, just depending on several variations. You'd have to be in the environment. So again, you take the factors I found in the second table, multiply them out, and come up with a positive cash flow. Subtract what it's going to cost us initially, and come up with a net present value of 79,743. When you do it with Excel, again, you're just using the range because it will calculate this for you. Otherwise, you're going to have to multiply each one of them out by a different factor. So that's net present value. They're really very easy to do once you set it up in Excel. I don't think I'd want to do this manually. I definitely would use Excel if I had to do it manually. So that would be net present value. Now, don't worry about this net present value thing because I'm always going to give you the factor. Now, when you get into finance, you're going to have to start using the tables yourselves, but you'll have a more definite uh, scenario to use to do this. So hopefully that helps. I'll probably do a few things in the homework as a video just to help you through this.